This card project is brought to you in part by Not2ShabbyShop.com. If you go to their store, enter JOY10 upon checkout for an extra 10% off.
Hi guys, Mamie here with OneJoyousSkip.com, and today I'm working on a Valentine's card for my Valentine series for 2017. And I'm going to be starting out using this stamp set by My Favorite Things. That is so cute. I'm so excited to feature this stamp set. And it's called Magical Dragons. And I'm going to be using the Flying Dragon for this card today. And I'm also going to be using this Distress watercolor cardstock, which is great for ink blending, because that's the first technique we're going to be working on. And I'm going to use my round blending tool, and I'm going to start out with Barn Door, and that's a nice deep red color, and I'm going to go from darkest to lightest. So I'm just going to blend that onto the cardstock here. I want to saturate it really well. I want it to be nice and dark. I'm going to switch now to the Festive Berries, and that has a little bit of a pink undertone to it, and so I'm going to go back over the Barn Door just a bit to kind of pink it up so it's not going from red to pink. I want more of an ombre effect. And my next color is going to be Abandoned Coral, which is one of my favorite colors. And my last color is going to be Spun Sugar, and the Spun Sugar is very, very light. I didn't have a lighter color that would go after the ones I used, and I wanted it to be nice and light. So just to remedy that, I'm going to have to do a little bit of extra blending to get the effect that I want. So I'm just going into the Abandoned Coral and trying to pull out some of that color as well. And then I'm going to switch also back to the Abandoned Coral to darken it up just a bit so that it's not so light. So now I'm switching back to the Abandoned Coral and trying to blend those two colors together nicely, and then kind of taking it up to the top as well to darken that Spun Sugar just a bit. And then you can work your way back down if you need to darken up all of your colors. And try to keep your fingers off of the panel, because then you will leave fingerprints, and it's been a little while since I've ink blended the background, and so I just carelessly put my fingers in it, so I'm just going to work my way back down. And so I'm just going to make sure that I have everything blended in nicely before I move on to my next step, and I think that looks good. And so now I'm going to die cut this with a double stitched border, a double stitched rectangle die. That gives it just a nice stitching on the edge. You can't really see it, but it's there. And so for our next part, we are going to be using the Lawn Fawn stitched border dies. And instead of creating like a scene background, I'm going to be using these to create little wavy lines in the background. And so you want to make sure that the cutting line is on top if you want for all of your panels to have the same look to them. And so I'm creating a little tiny space here at the bottom, and that's where my sentiment is going to go. So I'm just lining that up to make it look a little bit more symmetrical, so I can put the sentiment right in there. And so I think that's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to take some washi tape and lay the tape right over the whole thing so I can keep the dies together and put that in, and I have magically cut them out. And so this is what it looks like. I think it looks super cool. I'm going to take out the bottom middle panel there, because that's where my sentiment's going to go. And so now I'm going to put all these guys together and put a little bit of tape back behind them to hold them together. And so this is how it's going to look on the card. I'm just lining it up, making sure everything looks fairly even. And I'm going to be using the stamp that says, "You make life magical." And I'm going to be using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. It's a really nice ink that has a lot of saturation to it, so it can give you a nice bold impression. You just want to give it a couple extra seconds to dry because it does stay wet for just a bit. And now I'm using the Flying Dragon. I'm going to put that on some Copic paper. And this one is, I think it's Nina 80 pound solar white paper. I'm going to stamp that right on there, and it came out pretty good. I'm using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. There was a little ant that was walking along my mat there. I thought it was just a speck of dirt or something. I squished him on accident, but we've had a lot of rain, so they love to come in here for some reason. It's so weird. So now I'm going to be using my BGs to color in the dragon, and I've colored this image a few times before, and I liked the other times I colored it. So I don't know. I did a lot of shading and such on this, and so that's good. I finally have had time to sit down and do a little bit of shading, but I wanted to keep him a little bit lighter, but I ended up going a little bit too dark. It's fine. He looks fine, but I really wanted to keep him nice and light, so I just got a heavy hand today. But anyway, as you can see, I'm kind of going above the line to give a little bit of a backlight. And that just gives the appearance of a more rounded image. And so now, so I started out just coloring the whole thing with my lightest color, and then I put in my shading with my BG57, and then after that I came in with the BG15, and then also the BG23, which is what I'm using now, and that is my medium color, and I'm going to be going over the whole area towards the inside so that I can leave that backlight. And I just started doing this. Sandy Allnock does this with a lot of her images, and I really love it. I don't always know exactly where to put it, but you really can't go wrong. It looks pretty good either way, so I recommend that you give it a try doing the backlight. I think it gives it a lot more dimension, so I really wanted to show you guys here how I had been doing that in case you wanted to try that as well. And so now I'm taking my lightest marker, I believe the BG10, and I'm just going over the whole thing here. And this is where I should have stopped and just been happy with what I had. But I ended up taking my medium color because I felt like I wasn't getting a very good blend. I think the BG10, I'm losing a lot of the ink. I got to refill it. So I took the medium color and kind of went over the whole image just really quickly, and I darkened it up a bit, but I wish I would have just left well enough alone because it actually looks okay on camera. So here's me taking the medium color and just filling in the whole thing a bit, and it just darkened up the dragon more than I wanted, but it's all right. He still looks cute, or she, whatever. And now I'm using my RVs. And I'm going to get, and the reason that I start with my lightest and then you see me jump to my darkest is because I'm just using my lightest color to kind of wet the paper a bit. I feel like with the Nina, I have to wet the paper to get a better blend than if I use like Express It blending cardstock. With the Express It, I don't feel like I need to wet it at all. But I have like a huge ream of the Nina, and so I wanted to try to use that all up. It works pretty well. I feel like it uses a lot of my ink, though. And so I might just stick to the Express It paper because I don't feel like it uses as much ink. So I'm going to jump here to my darkest, which is the RV29. And I went ahead and created a little bit of backlight there on the belly. And I'm going to my next darkest, which is the RV25. And I'm going to try to leave the wings a little bit more translucent because they are supposed to be like skin. So trying to leave them a little bit lighter than the rest of the pink areas. And so now I've jumped over to my RV13. And then I'm going to blend it all together with my RV000. And I think we're looking pretty good. I also used the C00 to fill in his horns to give them a little bit more of a shade. And then I'm going over here to the puff of smoke. And I'm giving that a nice coat of the C00. And I'm adding extra dimension to it by pulling in the lines a little bit farther than what they show. And that just gives it a little bit more dimension. Makes the cloud look a little puffier and rounder. And I'm going to fussy cut these two guys out here. And that took me a little bit of time. But with the magic of editing, it didn't take very long at all. I haven't fussy cut in a while since I've been using my brother's Scan and Cut. I believe you can get the dies for these images as well. And so if I find the dies, I will link to them as well. And ta-da, the hard part got cut out somehow. That took me forever to go over those little spikes. Okay, so here we have our layout and everything is ready to go. I'm going to take my 3M foam tape and I'm going to cut it down the middle to give me a little extra. And I'm going to pop up both panels, and I'm also going to pop up the dragon and his cloud of smoke. And I'm using a top folding card here. And put him in place and put a little foam tape behind the puff of smoke as well. Okay, I think he looks super cute. So now I'm going to punch out a couple of hearts out of the blue. I was going to use the pink, but I felt like I had a lot of pink going on, so I decided to go with the blue and punch out a few blue hearts here and line them up in front of the sentiment. And since this video is super long, I went ahead and it would have been super long if I would have showed you all this, but so on the still photos you can see I added a little bit of sequence and I put the hearts in place. And so that's pretty much the card for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you learned a few things, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day.